Good evening, everyone. It's time for another installment of Ramblings of a Short, Fat, Bald Guy. Here it is, Valentine's Day, and my lovely wife is spending it working this afternoon. So we were planning on dinner tomorrow evening for our Valentine's dinner, and now it seems as though we are going to have a snowfall of anywhere from 7 to 12 inches, depending upon which weather channel you listen to. So you can figure it's going to be somewhere in that neighborhood, half a foot to a foot. So we'll just do dinner on Tuesday, whatever we got to do. Coming to you today, I had posted earlier, and I knew that it would blow up. I had posted about people's thoughts on the acquittal of Trump and his second impeachment. My statement was that it was no surprise. I figure that they would be voting along partisan lines, and that he would be acquitted, and that would be that. It is what it is. We've discussed this here before. One of the things that came up though on my post was a friend of mine who asked me to refrain from posting about politics because it created conflict. He said that if I wanted to post about politics, that maybe I could answer why Biden wanted us to be more dependent upon OPEC. Maybe I could answer about why the Democrats in Washington stood by while the cities in America burned. And he gave a few other things. And I'm just going to touch lightly on the first two things that I told you. The Biden wants us to be dependent upon OPEC by shutting down the Keystone XL pipeline. First off, he didn't shut down a functioning pipeline. He shut down construction of the pipeline. Was there a loss of jobs due to that? Yes, there was. We've talked about this before. Most of the jobs were in Canada. The company that was going to profit from that pipeline is in Canada. The oil that was going to come out of Canada across that pipeline was going to end up in the Gulf of Mexico for refineries, and it was going to be shipped overseas. Do I think Joe Biden wants us to be dependent upon OPEC? No, I don't. Here's the long and short of it. The United States is the largest oil producer in the world. Did you hear that? The United States is the largest oil producer in the world. We are also the largest exporter of oil in the world. Why do we export all of our oil? I can tell you, corporate greed. The oil companies make more money by shipping it overseas than they do by leaving it here in this country. Everybody's like, well, yeah, but our gas prices are going up. You know what? Our gas prices fluctuate. They have forever, since the 70s. Those of you that are old enough to remember it. Do I think that we're going to see a rise in gas prices? Probably. I don't think Joe Biden wants us to be dependent upon OPEC. I don't know that for certain. I'm just giving you my opinion, and it's my channel, so I can do that. Ultimately, I think what it comes down to is that for a long time, we were looking at ways to get away from fossil fuels. And obviously with Donald Trump in office, most of that went by the wayside. I don't know if that's good or bad. I've seen what lithium mines do to the countries where they're mining lithium for batteries that we would use for all of that. Solar panels. I've seen all the pictures people post on Facebook of them burying the used windmill vanes because after 20 or 25 years they have to be replaced. They're made out of fiberglass, they're composite, they aren't going to ever degrade, they have to be buried. So I don't know. long and short of it, the United States is the largest producer of oil in the world. We don't have to be dependent upon OPEC for our oil. The corporate greed of the oil companies are what makes us dependent upon others for our oil. Think about it. We're paying $2.39 today for a gallon of gas. If we didn't export our oil, we'd be paying 20 or 30 cents a gallon or 40 cents a gallon, whatever. How much money are the oil companies going to make? Nothing. Of course, the most profitable oil companies in the world in 2019, 2020's information wasn't available, made over $100 trillion in profit. Not all those companies were here in the United States. Some were overseas. Some were in China. Not a good thing. But, again, we choose that. We don't. The oil companies choose that. So you can't blame Joe Biden. I know people don't like Joe Biden. I don't care for Joe Biden. I don't think he was a good choice. I don't care for Donald Trump. I don't think he was a good choice. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, we haven't had a good choice in at least 8 years. At least 8 years. Probably longer. But it is what it is. Joe Biden's in office. Donald Trump's out. Is he going to run again in 24? I don't know. I don't friggin' care. It doesn't matter to me at this point. The other thing that we had made mention of was the burning of the Democratic-controlled cities all across the country and how the government didn't do anything. All the Democrats in Washington didn't do anything to stop that. Here's the way it works. First off, the bulk of the cities that experienced violence over the past summer were democratically controlled cities. I'm not going to deny that. There were some Republican-controlled cities. You didn't hear about that on the news. It was the democratically controlled because that's what we heard about from Donald Trump, and he was going on and on about it. There were a higher number of democratically controlled cities. But let's put this in perspective. I'll just go with one or two cities. Portland and Seattle. Both democratically controlled mayors. Black Lives Matter, and they do, started out as peaceful protests and turned into riots. A riot is wrong. It's not lawful. You can protest peacefully and it's lawful. A riot is not a lawful protest. Now, the way it works, Portland's got a riot going on. They have to request assistance from the governor of the state of Oregon. Then the governor can dispatch the National Guard to Portland to assist in getting control back for the community. The same with Seattle. Democratically controlled. Got to request help. Every senator and representative in Washington, D.C., whether they're Democrat or Republican, can sit out there and say, the Republicans can all say, look, the Democrats aren't doing anything. They can't do anything in Washington, D.C. It starts with the mayor, goes to the governor. The governor requests the National Guard. It can't skip a step. The police can't go to the governor. The police can't go to the National Guard. The police, mayor, governor. Governor makes the request. People come in and they help. It could have created more of a problem. I'm thinking, could have been some more people shot and killed, which obviously is what most of the protesting that was going on was about, and the rioting, which I'm going to tell you right now, the people that were protesting weren't necessarily the rioters. Speaking of that, and we won't harp on it long, The people that were protesting in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, protesting, not breaking into the Capitol, they're allowed to protest. What happened at the Capitol was a riot. The mayor of Washington, D.C. requested assistance for the inauguration. Didn't request it prior to. They should have. I don't know what was going on there. I have no idea. But it was wrong. And I will stand by that. I don't care where it is. Democrat controlled, Republican controlled. Doesn't matter to me. Rioting is wrong. And the people that are rioting should be arrested, should be charged to the fullest extent of the law, should be tried, and if found guilty, serve their term or sentence, whatever that may be. I know this may not be popular with some of you. I don't care. Again, I just tell the truth. I look at it from a common sense standpoint. Another thing on common sense, and I told the individual on my post today, I don't look at things whenever I make my choices as far as my leadership as to whether that individual is a Democrat or a Republican. I ultimately could care less what party they are affiliated with. And I think that's part of the problem. There are so many people that identify and they wear their badge of honor that they're a Democrat and they only vote Democrat. They're a Republican and they only vote Republican. I'm a registered Democrat. I can tell you I vote, if you looked at my voting record, more heavily Republican. But I do vote Democrat on occasion. But what I was going to say, I don't care what party a person is. I vote for whomever I think will do the best job. I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican. And I got to be honest with you, sometimes that candidate may not necessarily mesh with my personal beliefs, but my personal beliefs don't matter. Ultimately, I want the person in place that will do the best for my community as a whole, whether it's the mayor in Dover, whether it's the senator, whether it's the representative, whether it's the governor, whether it's the president. I vote for whomever I think will do the best for the country. Again, I don't care what party they are. Ultimately, I think they need to get rid of the parties. Have a primary. People aren't Democrat or Republican. They need to remove all reference to that. You pick, okay, we're going to choose candidates. We're going to have 2 candidates for president. And you've got Joe Biden. We got Donald Trump. We got Kamala Harris. We got, I don't know, half a dozen other people. You choose 2. And the 2 that have the most are the 2 candidates. That's the primary. Then you have the presidential election. I realize probably won't work. It's not a common sense thing, because it's not the way it was. But I think it would make things easier. And, hopefully it will, straighten some things out for people. I don't know. I mean, again, I don't want to cause social discourse. I don't want to cause conflict. I am all for having a nice discussion where you are polite and respectful to each other. I put posts on my Facebook page, and I am almost to the point where if you start name calling, if you start belittling people, then you know what? I'm going to delete your post. I'm going to delete your post. I may not delete mine. Be polite and respectful. The person that made these comments to me, we talked. I mean, it was a conversation. Even though it was in comments on Facebook, we talked. And that's all I really ask of people. Be polite and be respectful. Treat people the way you would want to be treated. Now, have I always done that? No. We all slip up. We have our days. It happens. And in these stressful times between COVID-19, the election, Donald Trump, the freaking cold weather, which is driving me crazy because, the snow, I got about 4 or 5 inches on the ground. And it sounds like in the next day to day and a half, I can expect another foot of snow. I'm tired of snow, but hey, it is winter. I got 34 days, I believe it is, till spring. And that doesn't even mean snow's over. I think it was 2 years ago we had snow up into May. So we don't know. But you know what? All I'm saying is be nice, people. People are allowed their opinions. Whether their opinion is the same as yours or not doesn't really matter. You don't have to agree with it. Scroll by on Facebook if you can't. Be nice. I'm all for having a nice, educated discussion, whether it be via comments, whether it's in person, whether it's on here. I'm all for that. I think that's where we all need to get back to. Quit being so mean and nasty. Have an adult conversation. Don't throw names. Don't call people names. Don't pick on other people's family. Don't drag other people into the conversation or the comments whenever they aren't involved to begin with. Why do that? It's just not right. Treat people nice. Treat people respectful. That's enough for me today. Ramblings of Short Fat Bald Guy. Appreciate you listening. And you know what? Spread the word if you like what I'm saying. Even if you don't, put it out there and say, hey, this guy's a freaking crackpot. I don't care. But you know what? Spread the word. I think that over time we can get through this. Things will improve in this country and hopefully in the world. Hopefully COVID moves along and we can move on with our lives. Everybody have a good one. Have a good night.